by 1988. Oh, sign 88. Mike Tyson was the most dangerous man alive. In 1988, Mike Tyson was not just the heavyweight champion of the world. He was pure fear in human form. Before the opening bell even rang, opponents looked beaten. The stare, the silence, the black trunks, the cold walk to the ring. Everything about Tyson felt different, like danger had stepped between the ropes. He was young, explosive, ruthless, and terrifyingly disciplined. This was not simply a great boxer at the top of his game. This was a fighter who made grown men question everything they believed about themselves. Every punch looked like it could end a career. Every second felt like a threat. And that is why 1988 Mike Tyson became something bigger than a champion. He became a nightmare the sport had never seen before, and perhaps will never see again. On long before Mike Tyson threw a punch, the damage had already begun. There was something chilling about the way he entered the arena. No smile, no wasted movement, no sign of nerves. Just that cold expression and a stare that made opponents feel like they were locked in with something far more dangerous than a boxer. The black trunks, the tense shoulders, the quiet confidence. It all sent one message. This man had come to destroy. Tyson understood that fear was a weapon, and he used it masterfully. By the time the bell rang, many fighters were already battling panic, doubt, and survival instincts. They were not thinking about winning. They were thinking about lasting. That was Tyson's genius in 1988. He didn't just dominate physically. He controlled the mental space of the fight before it even began, and that made him even more terrifying. What made 1988 Mike Tyson truly terrifying was not just his knockout power. It was the impossible way he combined that power with speed. Heavyweights were supposed to be strong but slower, dangerous but predictable. Tyson broke that rule completely. He moved with the quickness of a much smaller fighter, yet every punch landed with the force of a wrecking ball. His combinations came in violent bursts. Hooks, uppercuts, and body shots fired so fast that opponents barely had time to react, let alone recover. 1 second he was slipping punches, the next he was exploding forward with bad intentions. What made it even worse was his balance and timing. Tyson did not swing wildly. He stayed compact, loaded, and ready at all times. Every movement had purpose, and every step brought him closer to a devastating opening. He could close distance in an instant, get inside a taller fighter's reach, and unleash combinations that felt almost unfair. That is what separated him from ordinary punchers. He was not just powerful. He was fast, accurate, explosive, and precise all at once. In 1988, that combination made Mike Tyson feel less like a man and more like a force of nature. A huge reason Mike Tyson looked so unstoppable in 1988 was the style built for him by Cus D'Amato. This was not reckless aggression. It was controlled violence shaped by technique, rhythm, and precision. Tyson's peekaboo style made him a nightmare to read. His gloves stayed high, his head kept moving, and his upper body slipped constantly from side to side. Opponents could see him in front of them, but hitting him clean was another story. Before they could reset, Tyson was already underneath a jab, moving at an angle and launching a brutal counter. What made this style so dangerous was how perfectly it matched his physical gifts. Tyson was shorter than many heavyweights, but the peekaboo system turned that into an advantage. He used head movement to get inside taller fighters, where their reach mattered less and his explosive power became deadly. Once he stepped into range, he attacked with ruthless efficiency, digging to the body, coming back upstairs, and throwing combinations that broke both guard and confidence. In 1988, Tyson was not just overwhelming people with raw strength. He was dismantling them with a system that made chaos look organized. Every slip had a purpose. Every angle created danger, while every punch was part of a trap. That is why he felt so terrifying at his peak. He was not just a destroyer. He was a destroyer with elite technique. By 1988, Mike Tyson was doing something very few fighters in boxing history have ever done. He was defeating opponents mentally before the first real exchange even happened. His reputation had become so terrifying that many men entered the ring already carrying fear, doubt, and the pressure of survival. They had seen the knockouts. They had watched bigger men crumble. And deep down, many of them were no longer asking, "Can I beat Mike Tyson?" They were asking, "How long can I survive him?" That mental shift changed everything. A fighter who is focused on surviving is no longer fighting with confidence. He becomes hesitant, tense, and reactive. Against Tyson, that was fatal. The moment an opponent froze, backed up too straight, or second-guessed a punch, Tyson pounced. He could sense weakness instantly, and once he smelled fear, he attacked with even more force. What made Tyson especially dangerous was that he seemed to enjoy that psychological control. He wanted opponents to feel trapped. He wanted them to know they were in with someone who intended to break them physically and emotionally. In 1988, Tyson was not just winning because he was stronger or faster. He was winning because his opponents were carrying the weight of his legend before the fight had even truly begun. That made him far more than a champion. It made him a nightmare. If there was ever a moment when Mike Tyson felt completely unstoppable, it was 1988. He was still incredibly young, but by then he had already become the undisputed heavyweight champion and the most feared man in boxing. What made that year so frightening was how perfectly everything seemed to come together. Tyson had the speed of youth, the confidence of a champion, and the kind of destructive mindset that made every fight feel like a demolition job waiting to happen. He was no longer just a rising star with potential. In 1988, he looked like the finished weapon. This was the version of Tyson that combined hunger with experience. He had already proven he could win titles, handle pressure, and dominate on the biggest stage. But he still carried the raw aggression and explosive energy of a fighter desperate to destroy anyone standing in front of him. That balance is what made him so dangerous. He was polished enough to stay composed, but still savage enough to overwhelm elite fighters in seconds. In that year, Tyson did not just look powerful. He looked inevitable. Every entrance, every exchange, every knockout added to the feeling that the heavyweight division had no answers left. And that is why 1988 stands out above all. It was the year Mike Tyson became fear at its absolute peak. The reason the world may never see another fighter like 1988, Mike Tyson, is because he was more than a great heavyweight. He was a perfect storm of violence, skill, timing, and fear. Boxing has produced many champions, many knockout artists, and many intimidating men. But Tyson brought all of those qualities together in one terrifying package. He had explosive power, rare speed, elite head movement, ruthless aggression, and a psychological presence that seemed to drain opponents before the fight even settled in. Most fighters have one or two of those traits. Tyson had all of them at once. He also arrived at the perfect moment. Heavyweight boxing was still the most dangerous and glamorous division in the sport, and Tyson became its darkest star. He didn't just win, he made dominance look frightening. His knockouts were fast, violent, and unforgettable, which made his image even larger than life. In today's boxing world, fighters are more cautious, careers are managed more carefully, and very few champions carry that same aura of danger. That is why Tyson still feels unique. He was not simply a champion people respected. He was a force people feared. And that kind of presence is almost impossible to recreate. In the end, 1988 Mike Tyson was not the most dangerous man alive just because he knocked people out. Boxing has always had punchers, champions, and feared fighters. What made Tyson different was the total experience of facing him. The fear started before the first bell, grew with every step he took toward the ring, and exploded the moment he closed distance. He didn't just hurt opponents physically. He crushed their confidence, their rhythm, and sometimes even their belief that they belonged in the same ring with him. That is what made Tyson so unforgettable at his peak. He was young, disciplined, explosive, and absolutely ruthless. He had the technique to break fighters down, the speed to shock them, and the power to erase them in seconds. But above all, he had an aura that turned boxing matches into survival tests. Opponents were not just fighting for victory, they were fighting to endure the storm. And maybe that is the real reason 1988 Mike Tyson still feels larger than life. He wasn't simply a champion during that time. He became the symbol of pure danger in boxing form, a once-in-a-generation force who made the entire world stop, stare, and wonder how long any man could last against him.